Hello and welcome to another one of our videos today, where we're going to be talking about the hidden cause of a chronic pain, which is all to do with the thoracic spine. A lot of people miss this one as it's a area that's often not in pain, but it is a massive contributor to creating pain elsewhere. So if you're not sure where the thoracic spine is, here's a very simple picture. So cervical spine, which is sort of your neck, is all up around the top, and the thoracic spine runs from T1 to T12, so all the way sort of through here. A bit blurry on there, but you can get a good idea from this. All right, so that's the region we're looking at, and you'll see how it plays a huge contribution to how we move. All right, so the main function of the thoracic spine is to hold the rib cage and protect the heart and the lungs. These are our internal organs under there. If we have a heart trouble, we'll have long to live. So it's very important that it's surrounded by this, but also is very important to how we move. So two critical movements. So firstly, it provides extension to lift our arms overhead, and secondly, it provides rotation. It does a lot of other little things, but to just simplify it, just sort of think of those two things, how often we would use them throughout the day, and if we lose them, how a whole chain reaction of problems is set off as a result of that. All right, so we're doing this. I'll put a picture here, but we use rotation just for simply walking. So if you can't rotate a little bit, then you're going to create a new way of walking, which is going to give you a lot of trouble. All right, so what commonly happens is stiffness and rigidity sets in, and this is a nice ideal posture where there's some extension provided, beautiful axis of the ear, the shoulder, the hip, and right down to the ankle. Where here is the common posture we see in most of the population, where we get a hunch here, and then we also get an excessive amount of extension through here. So as you'll begin to see, we start to create problems at the lower back, which then ends up to chronic pain. But we also create problems with that neck and the head, because you can see how far the forward head posture is here. This is the area that's going to end up in pain, but this is the area that's the problem. This is the area that's going to end up in pain, but this is the area that's the problem, as is probably the hips as well. But just to give you an idea of like how this is often missed, because we're just treating the areas, the symptoms, but not addressing the cause. So and like I said, it's going to disrupt everything that we do, so even our breathing, and like it's pointing out here, everything above and below of where it is going to be affected greatly by this stiffness and rigidity. Right, so the stiffness here loses your ability to extend. So as you see, forward head posture, and you're possibly going to end up with this, you may end up with some stiffness there, but it won't be anything like you're going to experience here, and probably in the lower back, and you're going to avoid movements as a result of that. So loss of this, you're guaranteed to get a shoulder injury. It's just a matter of time. As the rib cage fails to extend, your humerus, your arm, it starts to smash into the acromion, which is the top of the shoulder here. So this is where this guy's got a shoulder impingement. All right, so this is a classic common shoulder injury, and this is what it would look like if you was good. This is what it looks like when you don't extend your thoracic spine. Can you see he's lost the ability to extend, and he can't get his arms there now, so he only has two options. Either he forces his way through and smashes up the supraspinatus tendon, gets a shoulder impingement, or he finds another way to do it and extends through his lower back and gives himself a lower back problem. Either way, he's gonna find a way. Your body will just adapt, and it will find another way to do, because it stopped where it should have been getting it from, where he's meant to getting it here. And you can see in this picture here, good extension. This guy just won't be able to do it. He'll do the same thing there. All right, so you always understand your body will find another way. It won't care if it's good or bad. It'll just say, I need to get my arms overhead. I need to get something off the top shelf. Or you're in the gym, I want to do this. It'll just find another way. All right, so, and here's a classic example of good posture. So thoracic extension's present. The core is holding the lumbar spine's stiff, so it doesn't extend too much. It's got glutes active, so because he's in a standing position. It's got upward rotation of the scapula, so everything's working as it optimally should, and he'll be in a nice position to hold a load. This girl here is just what we saw before. No extension there. Look at her head's all jammed up. Would definitely not want to put this dumbbell in her hand. All right, now we could argue, oh, she's not doing the exercise, but This is how often the injuries are created, from these repetitious pause things, because you've learnt that you can't get it from there. Your body is just adapted to the stiffness by creating a new movement. All you need to do is go to the gym to whack something in your hands and bang, you've got it. But sometimes you don't even need to do that. You just need to do a few thousand of these and you've got a shoulder impingement and you don't know why. And you treat the shoulder, but you don't treat the thoracic spine which created the shoulder injury. So you can see why so many people end up going around in circles with their treatment. Now, if you get a shoulder injury, you're going to be pretty certain that you're going to end up with a neck one, or maybe at the same time, but because the muscles that move your arm are also the same ones that move your head. So now you're going to start to get scapular dysfunction, compensation at the glenohumeral joint to make up for your lack of thoracic mobility, like we were just pointing out with those previous slides, where you can't get it from your thoracic, so now you're going to force your glenohumeral joint, which is the joint here at the shoulder where the humerus inserts, and the scapula is going to force itself to find extra mobility and compromise its stability. So it'll compromise its stiffness just like the lower back does in order to get your arm overhead. All right, and that's when you start moving it around, you start tearing rotator cuff muscles, and it's just not centered inside the ball and socket as such. So there's your humerus and there's your acromion, so that starts to smash into the top and you're moving it around too much instead of keeping it in the socket. Examples of loss of rotation would be a classic one with golfers. All right, so this is good rotation. This guy's never going to be able to rotate very well. He's going to have to compromise. He's going to have to try and get it from his lower back, or he's going to have to try and excessively rotate his shoulder, and either way he's going to tear a rotator cuff or he's going to have a back problem, and you're guaranteed he's going to have swing faults. He's a pro golfer. There's one of our YouTube videos. I suggest you to check it out if you are a golfer, but even if you're not, this is a good example of how even a professional, his game's compromised from this poor setup position, and he had to unlearn that. He had back pain when he came to see us. All right, but that's an example of thoracic dysfunction creating lower back pain. Now the extension, we often see this, as we were saying before, go into the lower back. So this example of this girl here, see her elbows are pointing backward. They should be pointing down. All right, you don't really want them pointing backward like that, because then the bar's going to fly up into her neck, and that's not going to be a comfortable position. She's not going to feel very strong. So then to try and make up for all that, she's going to extend herself up through here so she can sit more upright. But if she had had the extension in her thoracic spine, she wouldn't need to do that. All right, so this may not be a terribly bad squat. I've just used this as an example, but and this is where you'll find people getting all sorts of problems with squats and lunges and in the gym, but even out of the gym, just extension related problems, and always sort of SIJ dysfunction, piriformis syndrome with the hips, because they're just really and this thoracic spine goes undetected because all the pain's down around here, and no one bothers to look here, but you can sort of see here, these are clues telling you she's going to have to find a way, otherwise she's going to collapse on herself. This is where we start to say, okay, which come first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the hip that created that to happen, or was it that created that to happen? And sometimes it's hard to tell. Regardless of it though, you're going to have to address it because it's there now. All right, so you've got to treat it, and which may help the other one. So this is why I say which come first, the chicken or the egg. All right, and you've got to just work through that. The worst part of it all though is it all goes undetected, which I've said several times. This thoracic spine seems to get away with murder, creating havoc everywhere, and no one bothers to treat it. It just stays stiff and rigid all the time, and creating endless problems. So how does it all happen? Well, sitting is obviously the one that we can look at first. It's the most obvious one to look for. So this position here, just poor, doing this day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, just terrible. Even if you're sitting in a good position, just the excessive amount of it just creates rigidity and stiffness. So you need to get up and move around more, use some stretches, mobility drills constantly to sort of combat because you can't quit your job, so you're going to have to use different strategies. Poor training techniques, planks, sit-ups, poor stretching routines, overuse of exercise with no emphasis on efficient movement, a real misunderstanding of core strength here. This is a great way to stiffen yourself up, and create a multitude of problems. This is not core strength training. If you've never seen our video on planks, there's on our YouTube channel, go and check it out. This is just a dumb exercise. There's so much better ways to train your core than this. This is even worse. Holding your feet, this is a great way to just jam your hip flexors up, and then, yeah, you're getting no, when she goes back onto the floor, she has no extension. She's only training flexion with no extension. So if you're ever going to do sit-ups, do them on a Swiss ball, but really you don't need to do them if you're training your core correctly with other exercises in the first place. And poor stretching routines. So most people stretching things they shouldn't be stretching, which then stiffens the rib cage up even more, because it's the things they're stretching them are already weak, so now they made them weaker, so the thoracic just goes into adaptation and changing to stiffen up things. All right, so poor breathing, that's another big one. Most people don't even know how to breathe properly at all, and they breathe through their mouth too much, which means they end up using their upper traps and their shoulders to do their breathing instead of their diaphragm. So poor diaphragm control, they don't breathe through their belly as is seen here. So they have very poor control through their core. They can be great at planks, but it means nothing to me if they can't recruit a good breath. Postural awareness, almost non-existent in most people. They have no idea how they stand, how they move, and all they do is just use things to exacerbate where they are. Until you become aware of these things, you'll never change anything. Compensation from other joints. So again, this is with the chicken and the egg. So this is where maybe there's something happening at the foot. So the foot, a very flat-footed person, overpronates, does this to the knee, creates the hips, and they force into internal rotation, weakens glutes, forces a weaker back, so it loses its stability at the lumbar spine. So then the thoracic spine at the end comes in to stiffen it up to protect it. So you may have been good at everything else, you don't even sit very often, but you've got some issues down at the feet that then create problems there. All right, so they're things you all have to consider. So it does seem a bit sort of confusing, but these are things that you really want to look at. But understand, this guy is going to stiffen up just as quickly as the hips do. These two guys are really notoriously bad for doing so, and they're there to try and protect you, but their strategy is not a good one. So doing this plus this with the lack of this creates that, which then creates that and that. All right. So what can you do? Well, it's pretty obvious. Sit less. Sit with better posture if you're having to do that. Walk more, get up, stretch more. Release trigger points. Learn to extend through your thoracic spine and not your lumbar spine. Learn how to rotate correctly through the hips and the thoracic. So you must be doing this. People don't do enough of that. Too many exercises of just squats, deadlifts, chin-ups. They're all good exercises, but they have no rotational factor. You really need to. This is where the beauty of cables and stuff comes into it, and you really learn how to get it back. Learn how to stabilize your scapula as well. All right, so a lot of things you need to do. There's a great video that I have on our YouTube channel that gives you about does give you six different versions of how we might do this. Here's two of my better ones, so I'll show you those quickly right now. There's two parts to this. So basically, you got your hand behind your back, and then you try to rotate it around as far as you can. You can see I really struggle to get to that end range on that last, when it comes right up. So I've got to open right up, and if I just pause this for a second, what you really need to do to get the most out of it is this arm that's on the floor here. You really need to push quite hard into the floor to get the shoulder to be perfectly stable, because what I'm wanting is this arm that's sort of on that angle. I'm really wanting that arm to come right around to there, which would, the only way I can do that is with the mobility of the thoracic spine. And if I enhance the stability of the shoulder on the floor, it makes it a lot easier. Right, so if I keep going, because there's another part to this, so you'll see I usually do about 3 or 4 on each side before switching sides. And make sure you turn your head around. You see I really struggle to get my head. I had a very stiff neck on that right side. Now this is the second part to it. This one sort of hurts me, to be honest. So my shoulder's not happy being there at all. And most people find this is the hardest one to do. They really find, and again you'll see where I get stuck. I just don't quite get that end range that I'm really looking for. And then I switch sides. Again, start with behind the back, and you'll see I move a lot more freely on this side. Again, I have to push hard with my right arm,
into the floor, which, to be honest, my right arm's not happy with that, and my head comes around that just that little bit better on this side. And a great drill to really encourage that area around here to get its twisting and turning. So, because a lot of people it just gets locked down, and it doesn't really do the work that it should do, hence they get shoulder neck pain. Alright, so that's a good drill. I'll stay tuned and I'll show you another one. Okay, now here's one of our exercises that follows up after we've done trigger point release or mobility drills for the thoracic spine especially, and this really helps to do several things. Really, it helps you to sort of like learn how to use your scapula correctly so that it doesn't do dysfunctional things sticking out the back, like a wing scapula or such, or not moving enough to fan out and let the arm rise up about above the head without it pinching the top of the shoulder. And it starts to encourage the weaker muscles of the lower trapezius and the serratus anterior, which you would have heard me talk about hundreds and hundreds of times. These are very difficult muscles to strengthen, and they're very much like the glutes in the lower body, can become quite lazy and weak, and then you end up using a whole set of muscles that you don't want to use, and they'll become really tonic and tight, and you'll forever be getting massages, but it won't be working, because the minute you leave the massage it just comes back to the way it was. So this is a drill that teaches you how to use the muscles and the mechanics of the shoulder, and how they all tie in together to give you a good movement. And then after that you can come in and start to learn the strengthening process because the mechanics are there. Right, so there's two of these drills that we're going to show you. The first one is more for lower trapezius, the second one more for serratus anterior. Now the first thing that Nathan's got is his arms on the wall like a plank as such, and we've got him set up in a V angle. So he's basically going to be trying to sort of come out in an angle like that. That sort of the reason for that is that the lower trapezius, which is down here, the muscle fibers sort of run in this direction, so it encourages them to work better. Alright, so let's have a look how he does it. So basically just slides his arms up the wall, and then his hands will gently lift off to give him that nice little posterior tilt of the scapula there, but he's not forcing anything. Really understand, you don't want to force anything. Alright, so he's just letting it work on its own, and then he comes down nice and slowly, making sure he doesn't dive into that forward tilt. Now when he comes, if I just take that back a second, when he comes up, we're looking for the scapulas there. As his arm rises, so it comes up, we're looking for the scapula to sort of move out. Alright, so we're sort of giving him a cue and instruction that we want the scapula to move out and about. This is where the muscles in deep in here can really pull it down, and that's where the trigger points will lie. So if you've seen our other videos, the trigger points, or even the lats here, they'll restrict him from lifting his arm up. They'll be pulling him down. So we don't want this one pulling in, we don't want that one pulling down. And we're trying to get the serratus anterior and the lower trapezius to guide him on the way to lift his arms up. Right, so as he comes up, and then he's in that nice posture where his arms will just gently roll off the wall into that position. And the other critical factor is here, got to make sure his belly button stays in tight so he's not trying to arch through the lower back. That's the common cheating thing we'll see that gives people the illusion of having good extension when it's not really there.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed those. They give you a couple of ideas on what to do. Obviously there's a stack more, like I'm only just scratching the surface. This video is just to make you aware of the potential problem of thoracic spine, to really see how to overcome all the things that I've brought up. I would suggest getting our book here. Go to our website as well. There's stacks of articles, free reports, there's even checklists that I give you for free that you can download. And make sure you check it in the description below this video, because I've given you the heaps of the links to make it easy for you to find everything. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video and this makes you more aware, and if you do have pain at the moment, this could really help you out finding the hidden piece of where all your stuff's coming from. Alright, so hope you enjoy that, and I'll see you on our next one.